Okay, so we're here with North Ferriby United football manager Chris Boulder, just to give us an insight about how he got into the role, what the highs and the lows. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
So first question then, when did you know that you wanted to have a career in football management?
I think it was, coming towards the end of my playing career, I started to take more of an interest in the coaching side of things and how sessions were set up, and how you could perhaps organise your coaching sessions to get the best out of players, and obviously then take that into match day. So I think as my career started to come towards an end, I started to kind of think, well, if I can kind of enhance my knowledge of how to kind of construct sessions, start speaking to as many people as I possibly could. And then I thought, well, my playing career is not going to last forever. And I still wanted to stay involved in football. So therefore, I went down the coaching path route, acquired my qualifications, and then ultimately got experience to eventually land me in a managerial role.
Yeah, so that's great then. So, did you have, when you were coming to the end of your career and you had your managers, did you have any particular manager at any point in your career that, that inspired you to want to become a coach?
I think, I was fortunate enough to play professional football only for a brief stint when I was 18, 19, 20. So I was in the full-time game working with some managers who'd been there and done it and was very experienced. And then, I ended up in non-league and played a lot of football for many years in non-league, and it's very different because it's part-time. And managers probably haven't had that same full-time grounding as what I had from the professional managers. So, you try and take elements of each one, and, you've got to kind of think about some of their strengths and some of their qualities, and how, they perhaps treat every player as an individual, how they kind of use their man management and sports players. You took little bits of their tactics, and their philosophies and how they went about trying to win games of football. So I think it was a case of, I don't think any one particularly inspired me. I think what I've done is taken bits from all of the managers that I've experienced, and probably then use that to form my own style and my own unique kind of own philosophies and how I conduct myself as a manager.
Yeah, because I suppose that's really key, isn't it? That that's what you do during your playing career, or you try and take those best bits, because every single player will look at that and they might think that something's particularly good what they do, whereas you'll have your own opinions and you'll obviously see what's probably right and what's wrong and try to adapt that yourself. So that's good. So in terms of coaching then, saying qualifications, what do you need? Do you need any qualifications to become a manager?
Well, it depends obviously on the level that you would like to go in at. Obviously, if you are hoping to go into working with academies or professional organisations, football clubs, then you have to get your coaching qualifications. So when I was a youth team player at Hull, I had the opportunity to undertake my first kind of taste of coaching badges, and then when I started getting towards the end of my playing career, I started to investigate the next stage that I needed to go through. And ultimately, I've gone through all of the coaching badges now, all the way up until my UEFA A licence. So that allows me to kind of work into full-time football outside of the Premier League. So I can work from the Championship down, and I can work in all of the academies outside of the Premier League as well. But for anyone just looking to get into non-league and semi-professional football, more and more clubs now are asking for managers with qualifications, coaching qualifications. There are some managers that are still within the circle who haven't achieved all of their coaching qualifications, but my recommendation would be now for anybody, if they are interested in going into some form of football club at all levels, I would definitely encourage them to kind of start on that coaching career pathway. And, you can start at your level 1 achieve that, and then you build all the way up and to wherever you kind of have aspirations to coach and manage.
So you have a level 1, and then where do you go on to after that? It's a level 2, I presume.
Yeah, so that's right. Yeah, so the names have changed and the organisation have changed, and there are various strands that you can do. You can just do what was called youth awards, so you can target specific age groups, or you can get obviously open age, which is men's football, coaching qualifications. So yeah, everyone would have to undertake their level 1 first, and there's various assessment methods for that, and then you progress on to your level 2. And then your level 3, which used to be the old UEFA B coaching qualification, and then you go on to your level 4, which is your UEFA A, and then those people that have the fortuitous opportunities to manage at the elite level, they will then have to get their UEFA Pro license.
Okay, that's brilliant. So if you're looking back then, so when you first came out of football, what was your first step into? Do you know what did you like take up a placement or?
Yeah, so I was unlucky really at playing. I got a nasty knee injury, and obviously I started to then think about, will I ever recover from this? But I wanted to stay involved, and I was at Scarborough Football Club at the time, and I was lucky enough for the coaches to recognise some of my my leadership qualities perhaps, and they gave me the opportunity to stay involved. And even though I wasn't playing at that time, as I was recovering from that knee injury, they allowed me to kind of act as a coach. So I had opportunities to start taking some of the training sessions. And then as that progressed, I started having a little bit more input into, a bit of a team tactics, and then even as far as kind of team selection. I did recover and get back playing. And then I kind of ended up becoming an assistant manager, player assistant manager at Scarborough again. I did that for a couple of years under a really experienced non-league manager called Steve Kittrick. And then I was fortunate enough to get offered the full-time manager's job at North Ferriby.
Yeah, perfect. So if you just quickly go back onto there, so I was going to ask like what did you learn? But I'm thinking like they obviously recognised as a management that you had those particular skills, because obviously if you was a player in the changing room, they would have noticed your leadership, how you spoke to the other players, etc. So in terms of skills, what do you think are like key skills that you need for management?
I think now, I think modern day managers have to have more of a coaching background with them as well. I think, historically, managers were very authoritarian really, and they didn't really get involved in the coaching side of things, and they had specialist coaches to do that. I think now, for me, I think the skills of a management, they have to be able to do both. They have to be able to have them great communication skills with players. I think they have to have that ability to build relationships, but also ensure that there's clear boundaries, and that them boundaries don't ever cross over to the point where you can then cloud your judgment, and perhaps maybe because you have favorites, or you kind of have better friendships with certain players, and then you kind of mask over some of their poor performances. So I think you've got to have clear boundaries 100%. I think knowledge of tactics is really, really key. I think especially in lower league football, the pitches are not like what we watch on telly all the time. So you can't just have one kind of tactic and one style of play that you think is going to be successful at every single ground. Now, you've got to have a philosophy, and you've got to believe into that philosophy, absolutely, but you've got to have that kind of flexibility and be able to adapt to kind of different scenarios from there. I think your ability to work as part of a team is key. I think lots of managers have a assistant manager, followed by multiple coaches, followed by physio staff, followed by kit men. You have to be able to work as a team, but ultimately, you have to be that strong person who makes them tough decisions. But you've got to collaborate with your other members of your coaching team to allow you to kind of come to that final decision. But ultimately, that's got to ride with the manager.
So I can imagine, like, obviously during games, especially, I'm thinking now, you come in at half time after a game, how do you like control your emotions sometimes? Because obviously sometimes you've got to remain calm, haven't you, under certain situations, but how do you like act, if let's say if you come in at half time and you're not happy with the team, do you have the same thing that you do every single time, or do you try and change it up? Or
I think it's a really good point, because emotion definitely takes over sometimes, and especially at our level, again, we're not fortunate enough to watch instant replays, or we're not fortunate enough to watch the game from an elevated position, so you are really, really embroiled in the emotional side of things. But for me, whatever happens, I always try and start like kind of my team talks, halftime, post-match, with positives. I think it's important that you tell the players what you feel has gone really well, what they've done really well, and then it's always about you've got to kind of come up with solutions rather than just pointing out the obvious. It's obvious to say that was poor and that was poor and you've made a mistake there. I think everybody knows that that's happened. It's how you can come up with kind of some solutions to kind of put that right. But the challenging thing with football is you get 15 minutes at half time, and very, very rarely does the flow of the game follow the same pattern as the first half. So there may be times where you have to make them big calls in game whilst the game is going on, and you've got to kind of get that message on to the players, whether that's a change of system, a change of personnel, or you're going to target your opponent in a particular way. But yeah, I think halftime positives as much as you possibly can. And then keep the information short. I think we're all the same. We're all we've all been sat in a classroom, and if someone goes on for too long and gives too many pieces of information, then it's not going to stick. So it's always important. I said me and my assistant usually have a minute or two ourselves to kind of discuss about how we're going to address the team, and then we'll usually focus on no more than probably 3 points, and if it's applicable, we'll kind of do what we're going to do in possession and what we're going to do out of possession, so that when the players leave there, they're leaving with maybe 2, 3, 4 key points about what we want them to improve on.
So that's a really good point. Then you look at another key skill is obviously problem solving, and I guess as a manager you're doing that throughout. So that's a really good point. So moving on then, what do you think are the best parts about being a manager? What do you like really enjoy in your role?
I'm still heavily involved. I've got a brilliant assistant who's fantastic at putting on great coaching sessions as well, but I still love to be involved in the coaching sessions. I get an awful lot of satisfaction from kind of coming up with a particular session or a drill and then seeing how that can come to fruition on game day. I love the interactions with the players. Being part of a team is really, really special. Nothing can replicate that changing room environment. And for me, I think we've seen it with several players. For us, we come in and we hope that we make them better players. And for us, that satisfaction of developing a player both technically and tactically and socially, I think that's a big thing with us as well. We make sure that when we recruit the right kind of characteristics in a person, but also we like to think that we can add to that, and when they do, if and when they leave the football club, hopefully we hope that they leave a better tactician, a better technical player, and someone who's hopefully more tuned into society as well.
And do you still like to get involved in the training? Do you join in or not anymore?
Very, very, very rarely. I think I recognise now that if I was to kind of involve myself again, you're crossing that boundary with the players. Especially if you're demanding something from a player that you then can't actually deliver. then that creates a bit of an issue. So there are times when, you know, you get involved now and again, but it's literally very, very rare would I kind of get involved with the players now. I think I have a clear boundary between letting them do what they can do and hopefully for me to do what I can do.
Perfect. So, you know, when you look at it as a management, like you say, you mentioned about the training aspect of it. What like really gets you going? You know, is it the training or is it a match day?
I think it's a combination of everything. I really, really love the training sessions, and you know, like I said, I think getting everyone together, putting on a session where you think that that's going to have a positive impact on a match day, definitely. And then you can't beat the buzz of a match day. You know, the build up to everything. We get to the ground nice and early. It's kind of like a full day, really, because you know you're already preparing in the morning. And then when you get there, you know, it starts to build up. And then obviously as the players arrive, you're kind of giving them little bits of information and trying to work out the psychology of the player on that day, because some players will have had stuff going on in their personal lives, and you know, some players might be carrying an injury or not feeling great, and you've got to kind of communicate with them players, engage how they are. And then as a manager, you've got to try and kind of come up with the best strategy to work with individuals, because you know I've worked with some fantastic individual players, but individuals don't make a team. And you know, if you've kind of got that little bit of or not the team cohesion that you need, then sometimes that can fall down. But yeah, and then obviously, you know, the match itself, providing you win, it's a great experience. And you know, you've got to be careful, because you know, when things are going well, you've got to be careful not to get too high and too carried away with it, because you know, a week's a long time in football and anything can happen. And at the same time, it's important that you don't kind of dwell on disappointment. You've got to reflect, absolutely, but you know, you can't, although I say that it does ruin my weekend, but you've got to try and you know, reflect on it. And we're fortunate enough to get fantastic video footage back after a game. So more often than not on a Sunday, I will look at the video from the Saturday, and then you know, you can watch the game with less emotion and a little bit more of a analytical side of things, and then you can take that into training on Tuesday and speak to the players and say, you know, this is the good things that we saw and these are the things that we need to develop. But yeah, you can't beat that euphoric feeling of, especially if you've kind of tried to do something in training during the week and then it's paid off. You know, it's a very satisfying feeling.
Okay, brilliant. And then finally, so what advice would you give somebody, a young person now that thinks that they might want to get into this, you know, profession? What's the advice you would give them?
I would try and gain as much experience as possible by, if you know people, if there's opportunities to kind of write to a club, and do like even a little bit of work experience. And if you can experience, you know, even a training session, or even if you're fortunate enough to they'll allow you in the changing rooms and just see what it's like on a match day, I would try and get as much experience as you possibly can. And then, you know, just, I'm sure lots of people do, but just watch football, you know, and try and watch football from a coaching point of view, and rather than just getting engrossed in the game, try and look away from the ball and see what you would do and what players are doing, and kind of gain as much knowledge and information that way. And then, you know, get involved as much as you can with whether it's Sunday league, Saturday league, whatever it may be. Just try and get your hand involved as much as you can.
Yeah, it's good information. But so, would you recommend that they got on quite early with doing the coaching badges, or would you just get them on with going to work it out themselves, or do you think the coaching badges are really important?
Yeah, I think definitely the coaching badges are really important, because you know, especially nowadays, you know, the FA have this four corner model, and it's not just about, you know, the tactical and technical side of the game. You know, you can start to work out about how you can incorporate how important players' fitness levels are and how important the psychological side of things are. So I think getting on your coaching badges, it gains confidence. It allows you to kind of see if that's the right fit for you. Yeah. But yeah, the earlier you can do it, the better. But you know, there's never a time when it's too late, because you know, you will be developing as a person as well. So you'll get more confident perhaps later as you get older. You'll develop a little bit more maturity, and so it's never too late. But I would probably say that if you can and opportunities present themselves, then I would probably start on that ladder as quick as you can.
Right, perfect. Well, thank you for your time. Much appreciated, and hopefully everybody watching will get a lot out of this.
No worries. Thank you for having me.